Good morning, Boston. Good morning, mayors. How are you? What another fantastic evening, Mayor Walsh. This has been exceptional all around. Thank you so much for your hospitality, and thank all of you for being here this morning. I'm very pleased to bring us our next session, which will focus on the important issue of our youth and their involvement in civics and community action. We have some very special guests with us who I will introduce shortly. Before we do, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the sponsor of this session, Pacific Gas and Electric, and to show a PG&E video highlighting its commitment to providing education, mentoring, and training opportunities for both its employees and high school students. Please.
Major announcements in 2 port cities on Monday. In Oakland, CEO and president of PG&E Corporation, Geisha Williams, said PG&E is expanding its support for Oakland Promise, a cradle-to-career initiative that aims to triple the number of students from Oakland who graduate college within a decade.
Today, I am pleased to announce that we are doubling down and we're providing a second $1 million.
In addition to continuing its 5-year contribution of $1 million to Oakland Promise to fund college scholarships, PG&E is donating another $1 million over 5 years to help youth succeed in college, career technical education, and other valuable vocational programs, all through its Better Together Investing in California's Youth Initiative.
PG&E, you just took energy to a new level, because the energy in this room with the announcement of PG&E's partnership with the Oakland Promise can be felt everywhere.
At Cesar Chavez High School in Stockton, PG&E made a similar commitment to the local community by contributing $1 million to expand its ongoing workforce development and education initiatives throughout San Joaquin County.
It's one thing to have a business in the city, but it's another thing to be deeply invested in understanding that the workforce you get tomorrow is predicated on how you invest in those high schoolers today.
PG&E's commitments to Oakland Promise and Stockton Scholars also will tap into one of PG&E's key resources, its employees, utilizing them as student coaches and mentors.
Mentors teach you, inspire you to dream big, to aim high, and to think of a future that maybe you don't even think for yourself.
Students in Oakland and Stockton say they're excited about the opportunities for scholarships, internships, and mentorships.
I'm looking forward to going to college and achieving my dream, be the first one to graduate college. So it means a lot.
Again, thank you, PG&E. This morning, we're going to do a deep dive into a very important issue, how to involve our youth in community action and in politics, both locally and nationally. This session is meant to start a conversation with our young leaders and our mayors so that we can work together to address some of the most pressing issues of our time. We will take what we learned here today to our newly established Youth Involvement Task Force, led by our friend, the Mayor of Gresham, Oregon, Shane Bemis, and turn our ideas into action. Mayor Bemis will be moderating today's Youth Involvement segment. I just want to say thank you to Shane for his incredible leadership on this issue. We need it now more than ever. Thank you, Shane, and please welcome Mayor Shane Bemis to the stage.
Good morning. Thank you, President Benjamin, for your introduction, for your leadership of our conference, and passion on the issue at hand this morning. I deeply appreciate the opportunity to head up the Task Force on Youth Involvement, and I greatly value your support. I also want to thank our Executive Director, Tom Cochran, and all of the conference staff. It is an honor to work with the conference in this capacity and to work with our outstanding youth from across the country and around the world. When I was a high school student in my hometown of Gresham, Oregon, I got extremely frustrated with an issue that is essential for any high schooler growing up in my generation: a lack of available parking at the high school. I did what any future mayor would do. After receiving a number of tickets, well, a lot of tickets for on-street parking, I carefully researched the issue, I studied city code, and I came up with a workable remedy that wouldn't unduly impact the adjacent neighborhoods and would free up more street parking for students. I collected my thoughts in a short presentation, and I signed up for citizen comment at the very next City Council meeting. My impassioned remarks were greeted with platitudes from counselors about how nice it is to hear from a young person, and essentially a great big collective pat on the head. In fact, one of the counselors was my history teacher. The mayor looks over him and says, "Give him an A, next." Needless to say, the council took no action. Well, they might not have listened to a word I said back then, but they did me a huge favor, igniting a fire in me for how representative democracy should look and feel, and a pledge to never, ever brush off somebody who takes the time to research an issue, attend a government meeting, and speak from the heart. I would suspect that every mayor in this room has a similar story from your youth about your own calls to public service. Neighborhood issues that went unsolved, crumbling streets in front of our homes, a burning desire for urgent enhancements to livability and sustainability. Whatever the course or source of our passion, we have all been rebuffed at some point. But that was then. Now we have the keys to City Hall. It's useful to reflect on those touchstones of our own calls to action, and they remind us of the urgency of the present. Fast forward to today, when young people across our nation aspire for a world in which their top concern is wrong-minded municipal parking restrictions. Instead, too often they fear for their safety in our schools. They face an economy that, while approaching full employment, is marked by wages that have been largely stagnant for 20 years, while the cost of a college education and housing have both grown substantially over the same periods of time, putting too much space between their lived realities today and the hope and optimism that is represented by the enduring American dream. And for the privilege of facing these circumstances, we mock them as millennials or post-millennials. We joke about their need for safe spaces and their perceived lack of motivation. But the truth is that recent generations in America have faced some of the greatest challenges our nation has ever seen. 9/11, uninterrupted war, the Great Recession and the subsequent financial crisis, hyperspeed technological change at nearly unprecedented volatility in our federal politics. What do these kids do in response? Well, they use drugs and alcohol less than their parents did. They're more sexually responsible than their parents were. They stay in school at higher rates and are more likely to go to college. And when we can't prevent them from falling victim to gun violence, they start a political movement. Here's a new adjective we should use to describe this generation: resilient, and wildly so. Indeed, despite all of these challenges, despite all that we have thrown at these outstanding young people, we have watched a generation of dynamic young people rise to the occasion and make their voices heard. They plead with us to consider safety in their schools, and we offer them thoughts and prayers. They speak passionately about the emotional and physical toll of bullying in a supercharged technological environment where nasty communication has never spread faster. In that context, they ask us for a culture change to become a better, more tolerant, more accepting, and more kinder world. When I was growing up, the President of the United States saw 1,000 points of light, and he yearned for that kinder, gentler nation. In today's culture, too often our adults, many of them elected, fire off mean tweets and publicly shame their rivals. In a recent survey of 2,000 students in my home state of Oregon, young people were asked to state their biggest needs. In my day, I would have expected that list to include things like better access to youth sports or more elective courses. What was the top answer for today's youth in Oregon? Mental health services. Take a moment, really consider what that says about the world and the culture that they are experiencing. As mayors, we have a unique opportunity to be part of the solution. We're on the ground level attending the football games, the choir recitals. We have our own children in those schools, and we know that there is nothing worse than a young person saying they don't feel safe at school, or that they desperately want to escape the poison of modern bullying through any means available. At the local level, we can directly engage our youngest residents through internships and advisory boards. We can hardwire processes designed to hear the voices of young people in our organizations while giving them a critical boost through a summer job, excellent work experience, and really, really great material for their resumes and college applications. In Gresham, we provide paid internships for high school students through our Summer Works program. This summer, we will have 15 young people serve in nearly every corner of the organization, from communications to public works. Though this is a relatively new program, we've already had Summer Works interns go on to achieve full-time employment with the city, and in some cases, changing the trajectory of their families for years to come. When Gresham's Commission on Children and Families made their recommendations to the City Council, they urged us to expand mentorship programs for our youth. We didn't have many nonprofit programs operating in that space, so we got creative. We went out and found the excellent people willing to form one, and we set them up with an office space and furnishings right in the mayor's office at City Hall. We helped them raise their initial funding to get up and running, which included a generous $25,000 Childhood Obesity Award from our very own Conference of Mayors and the American Beverage Association. That program is now thriving and changing lives, and it's pulling our residents and our business community into their mission as they grow. In addition, our Youth Advisory Council is now 25 members strong, and in recent years they have played a crucial role in advancing important issues in our city. Notably, after a tragic homicide in a vulnerable neighborhood a couple years ago, our Youth Advisory Council went to the scene and painted a mural celebrating inclusion, painting over gang graffiti and showing that our youngest residents fully represent the brightest spots in our humanity. As mayors, we need to listen to the recent and urgent call to action from our nation's youth. We must hear their voices and give them a seat at the table. In fact, maybe it's America's mayors who need to go out and find those tables, the cafeteria tables in your local schools. Y'all got another hot lunch left in you? Last month, I convened a youth summit in Gresham. We had an exceptionally diverse group of around 100 high school students join us and lend their voices, their perspectives, and their trepidations in the exact same council chambers where my voice went ignored 2.5 decades ago. They were passionate, but rational. They were enthusiastic and impatient to see change, but respectful on all accounts. I cannot imagine a better way to spend an afternoon, and they made me a better mayor. In the aftermath of the most recent school shooting, students said, "We expected this. Didn't surprise us." This great nation has always depended on the optimism of our young people and the resolution of our older generations to bequeath a better world to our children. We are fundamentally derelict in that duty when we can sit idly by and watch terrified young people running out of their schools. In those images, I cannot help but see my own children. These are our children, your children. The truth of the matter is that people are targeting our children in buildings that should be pillars of safety, places that met the mark when we were young people. That's on us. Doesn't surprise us. We expected this. Mayor Benjamin reminded us in his speech why we are all mayors. When you go home, pull your teams together. Find ways to affirmatively seek the voices of tomorrow's America. Open up your organizations to your city's youth. Let them get a taste for public service and a leg up on their resumes. They will be enlightening, I promise. And you'll be an even more effective and responsive mayor with optimism for the future and the role that you can uniquely play to make that future better. Thank you, mayors, for the opportunity to lead this task force and for the chance to facilitate this very important discussion this morning. Thank you very much. Thank you. Today, we're going to hear from a wide range of amazing speakers engaged in youth issues on local and national levels. Our aim is to take what we discuss here today back to our Youth Involvement Task Force and hit the ground running immediately. And with that, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, who hails from the Harvard Kennedy School of Institute on Politics. John Della Volpe is the director of polling there, and he's been doing some exciting work in data analytics surrounding youth and millennials. We're happy to have him. Welcome, John, please.
Good morning. Thank you, Mayor Bemis, Mayor Benjamin, Mayor Walsh, for your leadership on this and many other critical issues. I've had the honor of directing the Harvard Institute of Politics poll on the attitudes of young Americans for nearly 2 decades now. And before I offer insights from our 35th poll, I want to recognize the leadership of one of your own, Mayor Pete Buttigieg. It was in 2000 at the IOP at Harvard that Peter, along with a handful of other young undergraduates, was trying to understand why so many members of his generation, the millennial generation, seemed committed to community service, but disconnected from politics and voting. It was the objective of those early polls to identify the barriers to greater engagement in all forms of public service and political participation. And this is something we remain committed to today. The partnership and collaboration we've had with the IOP students is the reason this poll remains relevant today. It was the idea of students, undergraduates, and not me, to poll young Americans on their views towards capitalism. It was their idea to ask whether their peers have more hope or fear about our future, how well they know other members of their community, like gun owners, truck drivers, local police, people of different economic, ethnic, racial backgrounds, and sexual identities. And it was their leadership and their inspiration after Sandy Hook to develop a series of questions related to gun violence that we still track today. And it was their idea to ask whether they think the Democratic and Republican parties care about people like them. But this morning, I want to offer up some of the 5 of the key takeaways from our last poll. It included 3,000 interviews with 18 to 29-year-olds who represent all of America. And here are some insights from this poll and also some town meetings I've been fortunate enough to moderate over the last year or so. First, to understand young Americans, we must all realize that 2/3 have more fear than hope about America's future. When they once told me the opportunity connects us as Americans, I now hear words like fear and anxiety when I ask the very same question about what connects all of us. While they are quick to cite concerns like cyber terrorism and the military, 2/3 of this generation believe that the main threats to our democracy come from forces inside and not outside, like our politics. Second, when we ask young Americans whom they hold responsible for the state of our democracy today, outside of the obvious, the big 3, politicians, the media, and big money, young people tell us the structural challenges, like lack of access to higher education, institutional racism, are chiefly responsible. Among young Republicans, we found that movement toward more political correctness was also a significant concern and accountable for much of the negativity they see in our country today. Third, and this is where I have some good news, is that we are witnessing what I believe is a once in a generational attitudinal shift about the importance and the efficacy and the tangible nature of political participation. Similar to the days before and after 9/11, before and after the most recent presidential campaign of 2016, we tracked a 15-point shift in attitudes related to Americans who believe voting and political engagement has meaningful and tangible results. More than most every other factor that we measure, views towards the tangible nature of politics are responsible for whether or not someone chooses to vote. And those factors, along with critical new data, like increasing registrations in counties and states around the country, including Florida, and self-reported likelihood of voting, are all trending up for the midterm elections. These attitudinal shifts, I believe, will see offline results and increased participation in the midterm elections if they continue to be empowered. For example, we saw a 23-point increase in the number of young Democrats who say they will definitely vote in November, a 5-point increase among young Republicans, and a 9-point increase among young independents compared to the last midterm cycle in 2014. Fourth, it's noteworthy that among 22 public and private institutions we included in our study, it was found that college administrations, the military, the Supreme Court, along with big tech companies like Google and Amazon, were found to be among the most trusted institutions in America today. Trust in local government was not far behind. The highest the highest rated institutions in America. Local government leads Congress by 21 points. leads federal government by 17. It leads state government by 4 points. Local police in your cities and towns do better on the trust ratings than the FBI. They lead the FBI by 10 points. They lead the Department of Justice by 16 points. And this was data collected in March of this year. Lastly, I want to echo what Mayor Bemis stated earlier about the Oregon survey and youth feedback about mental health. I hosted town halls in Columbus and Los Angeles just last week. I'm heading to Atlanta this evening with high school students and college students. And I was struck by how honest young people were about the damage that social media is doing to them and other members of their generation. They look back at the good old days. These are 15 and 16-year-olds. They look back at the good old days of middle school when they were 12 and 13, where they could play and, in their words, form real human bonds with their friends without fear of what they might be missing on Instagram or Snapchat or Twitter or something else. They eloquently and passionately shared how social media, along with all the other stresses in their life, was making them depressed, creating a sense of isolation, almost to a person. They detailed an overall feeling of numbness to the events of the world today, and especially politics. These are the post-millennials. They were quick, though, to connect the dots between their mental health and the public policy crises too many of their peers are dealing with, from opioids to racial tensions to sexual assault to gun violence. Almost to a person, they seek opportunities to have more conversations like the one we were having and like all of you have in similar town meetings. So as I close, I ask you to take them up on that. Spend even more time in your schools, your houses of worship, community centers. Young people care deeply about their community and their country. I think this year more people will volunteer in community service and even vote. Thousands of them in every one of your cities and towns across America are raising their hands, seeking to be understood, seeking to be empowered. And I know that every ounce of energy you invest and we invest will pay dividends to all of us for many years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Our next speaker is an inspiration, to be sure. She's a junior at the Boston Latin Academy right here in Boston, and she's been doing some incredible work with Youth Lead the Change, an organization of young leaders charged with helping the city of Boston decide how to spend $1 million of the city's budget. She's also done incredible work with March for Our Lives. Please help me in welcoming Vickiana Petithome.
Hello. I would like to start off by thanking all the mayors for coming to this session. It shows your commitment to the youth of your city. I stand before you as a youth advocate and activist. There are many more like me. Some you have met and some you have not met, but all will surely make an impact in this world. It is our resilience, our courage, and our strength that enables us to do what we do. But right now in this world, there seems to be two sides of this war, the youth and you, the adults. But there doesn't need to be two sides. We can be one collective force demanding change. Throughout these past few months, you have seen the power of youth through the March for Our Lives movement. But you have also seen it in the last few decades. Youth led the civil rights movement, the LGBTQ movement, the protest against the Vietnam War, and so many more. Youth have led these movements and will continue to lead the movements that follow. There is nothing you can do to stop it. The only thing you can do is join us, have conversations with us, resist with us, fight with us. You make decisions that affect our lives, yet we often have no way to make our voices heard in the decision-making process. The gun laws you make affect our chance to live until adulthood. The environmental policies you enact will determine whether or not we have clean air to breathe. The education bills you pass will determine whether we have books to learn from. Everything that you do will affect me, yet I am not allowed to have a voice in your decisions. This is not right, it's not democratic, and you can stop it from continuing. So here is what you can do to support youth activism and amplify our voice. You can create programming in your cities that allow youth to be active participants in your government. You could allow youth to control a portion of your city's budget, like Boston does with its youth participatory budgeting process. You could lower your city's voting age to 16, like Tacoma Park, Maryland. You could invest in public schools. If you want to get youth involved, you have to listen to them. One of the most effective tools is the formation of youth councils and youth advisory boards. Meet with your teen constituents, a representative from each neighborhood, every week, 2 weeks, or month. Sit down with them, grab a pen and paper, and listen. When youth speak and use their voice, it is truly an amazing thing. But you, the adults, the ones our parents have chosen to represent us, must listen and then act on what we say. Listen to what we think is working and not working. Then act. Use these youth councils as focus groups for new policies that will directly affect them. Ask these youth about their view on the new school budget. What is missing from schools? What could be better? What is going on in their neighborhood? Simply learn what it is like being a youth in your city. I also urge you to make extreme efforts in making sure that your communities of color are being heard. It is easy to sometimes leave us behind. But for too long, communities of color have been marginalized, silenced, and ignored. It is important that in everything you do, there is proper representation. Do what it takes to reach the youth of color in your city. Consider the factors that make it harder to get involved in these sort of programs, such as systemic economic inequity. There is more than a $20,000 gap between the median income of a black family to a white family. Because of this, many youth of color are helping support their families. So explore into making the Youth Advisory Board a paid position instead of a voluntary one, so that everyone, black, brown, or white, has the opportunity to serve. Make the extra effort. Reach out to the youth that are active in their communities and be a supporter of youth power. Reach out to youth that aren't active in their communities and get them excited to be involved. Because investing into youth is investing in the future. Make that investment now. Thank you.
Thank you, Vickiana. Wow. Incredible work right here in Boston. It is with tremendous honor that I introduce to you a remarkable mayor whose community was tragically struck with one of the deadliest school shootings this country has ever seen. Her strength and compassion as the leader of her city have been truly extraordinary, and we're so grateful to have her here with us today to tell us her story. Please help me in welcoming the mayor of Parkland, Florida, Christine Hunschofsky. Good morning, Mayor.
Good morning.
Okay, so as mayors, we all know that what happened in Parkland is our worst nightmare. Walk us through that day.
So I just gotten home. I live literally around the corner. The community I live in, it was around the corner from the high school. And then I got a phone call that there had been an active shooter report had come in. My first reaction was, we live in Parkland. We have about 31,000 residents. It's a very safe area. I think the day or two before, it had just been named one of the safest cities in all of America. So my first reaction was, is this real? Or did somebody just call this in as a prank? I didn't get an answer right away, but I heard the sirens going by, the numbers I'd never heard before in our area. So I decided to go right to the high school because I knew our residents would be showing up, and it's for me to be there and make sure that they're okay.
Right.
It was difficult. The fire, EMS were there, parents were coming, extremely worried. They weren't hearing from their children inside. Right. Some of them had put their phones down. When the first students started coming out, to see the parents just embrace them and be so grateful to see them again, it was unbelievable. It was extremely emotional. We didn't know where the shooter was. There was a lot of information that wasn't out there. And then the press came in. And the press came in. They wanted all this information. And I'm so proud of our community. Our community is a very close-knit community. You see everybody at the grocery stores, at the parks. Everybody is somehow connected to everybody else. And for this to have happened there in Parkland, to me meant it could happen anywhere. Right. Things like this aren't supposed to happen in Parkland. Right. So when the media came in, I didn't want to talk about what had happened as much, but I wanted to talk about our community. The resilience of our community. Our community was always the one that when Hurricane Irma hit, as soon as our residents had electricity, they were emailing me, calling me, Christine, where can I go to help those in the Keys who needed help? We were the helpers. We weren't the ones that needed the help, usually. Right. So that was my experience with the media. It was on. And then that evening, I found out that a friend of mine had lost her daughter. I hadn't been checking my social media, and I had seen that they were looking for Gina. And so I texted my friend Jen, and I said, how's Gina doing? And that's when she called me and told me what had happened to her daughter. Later in the evening, they'd had the parents who hadn't heard from their children yet at the Marriott Hotel. And I don't know, it was like 1 a.m. And I went there and I recognized parents of children who had played ball with my son. Mm-hmm. I recognized friends of mine I had just seen 2 days before. And it was heartbreaking. And to have an incident like this as a mayor, these aren't just the residents we serve. This isn't just the community we serve. This is our community. That's right. This is where we live. So for us, we're not as removed from this as maybe some of the other representatives are. And for me, I felt it was so important to give a voice and a face to our community so that people understood this wasn't just a headline. This wasn't just something that happened, that our people were affected by it. Right. At about 5 a.m. the next morning, I ran into Nicole Hockley from Sandy Hook, and she had lost her son Dylan there. Mm-hmm. And I talked to her quite a bit, and it's kind of ironic that she was comforting me at that time. Yeah. And she kind of let me know that a tsunami was coming to our community. Right. And that I should always remember why I'm here. So throughout this, whenever I've had to make a decision on something, I've always remembered what my purpose is. My purpose is to make sure that my community and my residents, my friends and my neighbors are taken care of, and to avoid the circus. So focus on the purpose and stay out of the circus. Yeah. And in any kind of a tragedy, whether it's a mass shooting, I think that's what guides the mayors. Right. We're the ones that we get direct feedback every day in the grocery stores and where we are in the community, and it's important that we focus on that.
So how do you, and I think your point is well taken, that mayors are not removed from these people. There are kids, we see them, and so how do you stay strong in that situation and lead your community through that when you're seeing your friends' children have passed away? How do you do that?
I think you just do. I mean, I went into elected office because I wanted to serve. Right. I wanted to be here for my community. And that's what we do. And I think every mayor can relate to that. Right. We wanted to make a difference in our community. We wanted to be there for our residents. We went to funeral after funeral after funeral. So we had the emotion while also having to make sure that the residents felt safe.
Right. On that day, we witnessed the worst of humanity. But we also saw out of that the best of humanity and these natural leaders that are stepping up and taking the case. That doesn't happen by accident. What have you done in your city to help youth, so that they were prepared to take this mantle?
Our city is a very young, family-oriented city. We've been active with our youth, and our commission has been active in the schools. Even though the schools are run by the county, there have been no boundaries for us. Every year we have Government Day in October, where every single third grader from our city comes to City Hall, and I speak to them for about half an hour, 40 minutes each class. It's 2-3 days. And we just talk about their community, their city hall, their city government. And we talk a little bit about how the different levels of government and how it works, and then I ask them questions. For example, what does it take to be a mayor? I love the answers I get. It's not very hard. I mean, you need to be 18 years of old, voter registered to vote, but I ask the children, and then I hear things like, well, you need to be honest. To which I say, that would be great, but it's not a requirement. And then from some of the kids I hear things like, you need to be confident. And I say, I agree, it'd be great. But there are days, some mayors, we're not confident every day. We are just human beings like everybody else. And on the days we're not confident, we take a deep breath and we remember our purpose and we go out and we do our job.
Yeah. Well, Mayor, I think we all can certainly relate to, obviously, the mayors in this room of the gravity and the heaviness of what you went through. We are all incredibly supportive of you, proud of you, and I know that when we watch this happen, every mayor relates to every mayor. So this is a brethren, and we just want to say we're with you.
And if I could really quickly, so many have reached out to us,
Yeah.
and I haven't been able to say thank you to everybody. For those of you who reached out, for those of you who are thinking of us, I just want to say thank you. When things like this happen, so we all have our city borders and our city limits, but when things like this happen, all those go away, and I just want to say thank you very much on behalf of our community.
Very good. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Our next two guests really need no introduction. These individuals have witnessed tragedy and pain that most of us could never imagine. They've taken their grief and firsthand experiences and have channeled them into an international movement that has reached millions all over the world. Included in that movement is a passionate call to action. Today, we're here just to listen, to learn, and to hear their message, to recognize where they've come from, and to understand their story as change makers. First of our two guests, please join me in welcoming Alfonso Calderon.
Hello, everybody. How are you doing? Pretty good, I guess. First and foremost, I just want to thank my own mayor, Christine, for the beautiful words she just said. And for every mayor here, does not matter to me if you're a Democrat or Republican. Thank you for being here. My name is Alfonso Calderon. I'm 16, and I go to Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. And today, I only have 3 words for you all. This is America. What do I mean by that? America is the greatest nation on earth, and I don't think a single person here would disagree with me on that. We have broken walls, built bridges, ended racial discrimination to the best we can. We have fought tooth and nail for freedom across the world, but this is also America, a country where 17 kids can be murdered and not even a third of our legislature and Congress bats an eye. I don't know about you all, but after February 14th, my life changed forever. I remember that day like it was yesterday. I was in my favorite class, drama class. You could say I'm an actor, not a crisis one, but still acting. I was with my best friends, you know. In a class where you bond like that, it really feels like a family. I remember we were doing the kids show, so we were practicing to perform for the local elementary school. Then at about 2:30 in the afternoon, the fire alarm rang. It was a little strange to me back then. I remember earlier that day the fire alarm had rang, so something had to be off. You know, the kids started walking out of class as usual. We're taught in school, you know, fire alarm drills, active shooter drills. It's a part of school now. And as the kids walked out and I got to the door, that's when all hell broke loose. Screaming, crying, things that I should have never seen or even heard or had to imagine occurred. As I ran back into my class and our teacher was telling us to run into the closet, I looked towards the door. I saw probably the most horrifying thing I've ever had to see in my entire life. A young girl, very good friend of mine, she was so mortified, so horrified, that the expression on her face is still in my nightmares. The most beautiful person you could probably ever meet, weeping, looking at the floor. Her life was over. We ran into the closet, still scared. Some kids were saying it was a drill. Some, like me, knew it wasn't. We huddled in about a 10-foot closet for about 60 kids. We feared. We prayed. My best friend cried on me. And I'll tell you right now, it's not every day that a 7-foot-tall, buff, beautiful Hispanic man starts crying on you because he's fearing for his life. He did one thing that I wasn't expecting. He started to pray after he called his mom and told her goodbye. I don't know about you guys, but the day that you have to tell your parents goodbye because you're afraid of losing your life before them, that's not a day we want to live in. 20 minutes in, we heard 2 shots. Screaming, crying, it all started coming back again. Girls that had been my best friends for years, holding my hand, having panic attacks because they knew that life as they know it, it's over. I can't explain the feelings that you have during a school shooting. One thing that I can relate it to, that feeling of anxiety, of uselessness, of not being able to do absolutely anything, there's only one other place where I felt that. The United States Congress. It might sound like a funny remark, but it's no joke. I've spoken with legislators from across the board, senators, representatives, mayors, and not one single person is confident that one thing can be done about the 17 people who died in my school and the many others that have died since. Not one person has said anything, but I'm hopeful. I might not have a lot to base my hope off, but I have faith. And I have faith in this country. Because like I said before, this is America. It doesn't matter if you vote blue or red. It doesn't matter if you think gun control is the way we should go. Because there are steps we can take right now. There are grants, mayors. You can ask for things like ceasefire, where trained professionals help lower gun violence in your cities. There are so many things we can do before we get to the federal level, because one thing needs to happen, and that thing is change. And as I've told so many people going across this country, change, it starts at home. People at home don't look to their representatives, they don't look to their senators, they look to their mayors. They look to the people they grew up with. They look up to the people who only care about them, not the NRA, not the banks, no special interest. You guys are the ones that are going to be able to change this issue. Not only the conversation, but the local laws. Local laws is not really talked about on CNN, Fox, MSNBC, but local laws are the ones that change lives. And in America, we have a thing where we call to arms all of our friends, all of our, our allies when we go into war. But I say this, how about we have a call to love? Because I know in this room there might be so much animosity, but if you look to the person to your right and the person to your left, I'm sure there's one thing about them where you can say, yeah, I'm proud to be standing next to that American. So, before I go, and my buddy David gives a very good speech, all I have to say is, remember, even in times of tragedy, even in times like this where it's honestly hard to find words, never give up, and please remember, this is America. Change is always possible, and good luck.
Wow. It is with tremendous respect and admiration that I introduce to you our next speaker, a natural leader who has made an enormous impact on how we talk about youth violence, school safety, and politics in this country. Sometimes, unfortunately, it takes a tragic story like that experienced by David and his peers to change the conversation and to go beyond all of the rhetoric and politics as usual. We thank him for all that he's done. And ladies and gentlemen, please help me in welcoming David Hogg.
First off, I want to begin by thanking all of you for being here. Oftentimes, people's only interaction with government is their local government, as Alfonso said. And if you guys would be so kind, just remember to look at the handouts that are in front of all of you about Cure Violence. It's an incredible program. It's a bipartisan solution that we can work on, not as Democrats or Republicans, but as Americans, to help scourge and end the gun violence epidemic and violence epidemic that all of America faces. Lives depend on it, and you guys can save those lives by implementing those programs. Time and time again, when gunfire erupts in our schools and on our streets, the rest of their country sends their thoughts and prayers. Mayors, America, hear our thoughts, hear our prayers. We are young and we want to grow old. We want to grow old and get wrinkles on our faces and comb our gray hair. We have big dreams to see the world, solve great problems, fall in love, push our kids on swings, watch them grow up and make this world more just and fair and safe. America, hear our prayer. We love our families who come in so many different shapes and sizes. Their love is what gets us through the day. We want to stay alive for them. America, hear our prayer. We have been marching, standing, and showing up because our friends mean the world to us. They relieve us in our grief. They are our courage in our times of fear, laughter when there's too much to spare. We're here today fighting for the lives of those that no longer can, because of what a gun can do. America, hear our prayer. We are young, and that means we don't have to accept the way things are. We can build the world the way it ought to be. At the risk of us dying, America, hear our prayer. When the money and power no longer dictate laws that put us at risk of dying, America, hear our prayer. We want everyone to know that as we work to make this country safer, we support the Constitution and the Second Amendment. We want the NRA member who buys a gun lock to keep their kids safe at home to know we love them. We want the NRA member who believes in common sense gun laws to know that we love them too. We want the NRA member who believes in waiting periods to scourge the suicide epidemic at the hands of a gun to know we love them as well. And we want the NRA member who turns in their AR-15, the gun used at our school and so many other mass shootings, because you don't need it to shoot clays, you don't need it to go hunting, to know we love them too. And we want the NRA member who is appalled at their leaders who call us terrorists to know we love you too. We want to work together to save lives. America, hear our prayer. We want our schools to be places for learning, where hands are raised for discussions and debates, not to show SWAT teams that we're not armed. We want our schools to be free from the sound of gunfire, free from the screams of pain, free from the wail of sirens and the cries of grief-stricken moms and dads and sisters and brothers and best friends. America, hear our prayer. We demand that our streets and neighborhoods be safe so we can be outside, walk to the corner store for some Skittles, play sports in the park with our hoodies, and be good friends on the street without the fear that a gun is going to go out and cut down another life. America, hear our prayer. We want to go out to the movies, dance on a Saturday night, enjoy a concert, and listen in church without the fear that somebody will storm in and open fire. America, hear our prayer. We love going to high schools and colleges to register new voters. We cannot begin to describe the joy that we see in our new friends' faces when they sign up to participate in this democracy. They are energized. They understand that they have the power, the strength, and the possibility to do the right thing and right the wrongs of this nation. They know that when they show up this time, the young people will win. America, hear our prayer. We dream big dreams, not just for ourselves, but for the country. We imagine citywide voting. We hope that every one of the high schools the students in your cities go to, enable them to register to vote come this November. We know from firsthand experience that the government that is closest to us is the one that we can count on the most. When tragedy strikes, no one is a Democrat or Republican, liberal or conservative, gun owner or not gun owner. We don't split up into groups based on race, religion, or creed. We are one. We are united. We are America. And this unity at the local level is something that we want to build everywhere. We need your help to do this. America, hear our prayer. We know that talking about this issue is the first step to solving it, and we can't solve it alone. We need everyone, especially those who have a different approach, to work hard too. We want to focus on if you want to focus on mental health care, great. Let's fight for that. Let's fight together for a world where there's full funding for behavioral modification programs in our schools and cities, where they're able to lower violent crimes without even any form of gun control measure by 40 to 70% in over 100 communities over the past 18 years. Those programs are called Cure Violence and Ceasefire. Finally, let's end the stigma on mental illness and fix that too. America, hear our prayer. We cannot accept the way things are when 96 people die every day, where African American men are 13 times more likely to die because of a gun. We know where known violent offenders have no problem getting a gun and killing their family. We can't keep hosing the blood down our streets, repairing the shattered windows and bullet-riddled doors, and burying our young. Because when we bury our young, we bury our future. This has to change. This change can only happen with you taking the first stance against it. It's been 190 days since the tragedy hit our lives. Come on, it's time to ban bump stocks, raise the legal age to 21, and institute universal background checks. America, hear our prayer. We know that while the politicians in Washington fight to take money from the NRA, another person is planning a mass shooting right now, buying a gun out of the trunk of somebody's car to ruin another young person's life. And a toddler is sadly playing with something they think is a toy. Life is fragile, but change will come. It will come through love and compassion. America, hear our prayer. We are young and we know what we want. We want to live in a world where weapons of war play no part in robbing us of our right to grow old. We have cried too much, placed too many flowers on too many graves, mourned too many best friends, brothers, sisters, and teachers, and parents. America, you've given us your thoughts and prayers. Now we give you ours. The time has come. From this moment on, I feel it. I believe it. And I say it with us. Never again, never again, never again. Thank you.
Wow. Powerful stuff. Thank you all, David, Alfonso, everyone, for your incredible leadership, and we absolutely look forward to seeing where you're going to go and continuing the conversation as we expand this youth task force. So thank you all very much. Let us give our speakers one more round of applause, please. I'd now like to shift gears and move toward the second segment of our youth session. Our next guest is no stranger to the conference. He's done some excellent research over the years in understanding how everyday people think, vote, and make decisions. He has recently moved his focus to youth and their involvement in politics and policy. He has 15 young people with him today from all over the world whom we will invite to the stage, 5 of whom will speak on the experiences that they've had regarding their engagement in their home cities. We're excited to hear their perspectives. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Frank Luntz.
So it's very rare that I get a chance to do this. The students that presented, that spoke today, it breaks your heart, but it gives you a feel for what can happen and for the difference that can be made if we listen, if we learn, and then if we lead. And I want to take that idea and expand it globally. So if I can have the students come on up here, we're going to do something really cool today. 14 students from 14 different countries, all of them between the ages of 18 and 23, all of them committed to making a change in this country and across the globe, and all of them from NYU Abu Dhabi. NYU Abu Dhabi brings students from over 100 countries. And to give you an idea of who these young women and men are, only 4% of those who apply get admitted. And 82% of those who are admitted enroll. There isn't a university in America that's tougher to enter than NYU Abu Dhabi. And I want them to introduce themselves now so you can get an idea of flavor of the countries that they represent.
Sziasztok. Hello, my name is Mark and I'm from Hungary.
안녕하세요. Hello, my name is Hoon. I'm from Korea.
Which Korea?
South Korea.
Hello, my name is Lena and I'm from Australia.
Parev, marhaba, and hello. I'm Araz and I'm Jordanian Armenian.
大家好, hello, my name is Liz Mao and I'm from China.
Mabuhay and hello, my name is Sienna and I'm from the Philippines.
大家好, hello, my name is Teras and I'm from Hong Kong.
Доброго ранку, my name is Alexandra and I'm from Ukraine. Oh, and good morning.
Доброго ранку, my name is Alexandra and I'm from Ukraine.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Warda Malik and I'm from Pakistan.
Namaskar. Hello. My name is Manas and I'm from India.
Hello, apa kabar? My name is Dane and I'm from Indonesia.
Subha Pravad and hello, my name is Sampanna, I'm from Nepal.
Hola, hello, my name is Sebastian and I'm from Colombia.
Привитание. Hello, my name is Alena and I'm from Belarus.
How amazing it is. 14 countries. Some of them, their parents are at war with each other, and these young women and men are studying together at peace. And you can only get it at NYU Abu Dhabi. So, 5 of them have prepared a message specifically for you, specifically for the U.S. Conference of Mayors. Their mission, and I've got the names that are up behind me right here. So if any of you want to reach out and contact them, they want to hear from you. They would like to create sister cities. They would like to create a permanent relationship. You pick the countries, the people that interest you the most, but they're up there right now. So if we can get the first one, each one's only going to go 90 seconds, but it's an individual message, and I hope that you see the impact that they can have if you and them work together globally. Sebastian, you're up.
Hello everyone, I'm Sebastian and I come from Colombia. Not Colombia as it's written there, but Colombia with an O, for the record. If you only remember 2 words from my speech, I want you to remember this: civic culture. My city, Bogotá, Colombia, has 2 main challenges. The first one is traffic congestion, and the second one is the global challenge of sexism. We decided to tackle these problems with civic culture. But what is civic culture anyway? Civic culture is the ability of engaging in civil discourse for the benefit of a common interest. It allows our citizens to align with our cities, to identify with our cities. Let me give you a quick example. My city hired 420 clowns, yes, clowns, to make fun of traffic violators. Why? Because people are more afraid of being publicly ridiculed than fined. Think about it. Thanks to this policy, traffic fatalities dropped by over 50%. We also organized a night without men, where all men were asked to stay home in the evening to look after their children, while the women went out. And you know what? It worked. Harassment and bad behavior dropped by almost 10%. So, why should we use civic culture? Well, because for many years, we have tried to fight drugs with war instead of education. That didn't work, because bullets are not as sharp as pencils, because fear doesn't mean obedience. Public policies are only successful if citizens acknowledge their civic duty and act for the public good. I believe that American cities have something to learn from my city, because we all share the most powerful tool to make things happen: our people. Because I believe in my people. Because I believe in your people. Because I believe in you. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lena and I'm from Australia. So, how would you like to be the first carbon neutral city in the United States? Well, my city, Adelaide in South Australia, aspires to be the world's first carbon neutral city in the world by the year 2020. As international leaders in climate change action, we plan to switch to renewable energy sources and smart technology. First, some context. The world is changing, and we need to equip young minds with a vision of sustainability. My city gets this. I have attended 3 public schools, all of which had a greenhouse and environmental programs. These seemingly small actions foster a valuable connection with the environment and increase openness to change. Adelaide is leading the way, locally and internationally. The first in the world to have a solar electrical bus and the first in the nation to eliminate plastic bags. 30% of our households have solar panels, making us amongst the foremost in the world to do so. As you can see, my city is well positioned to achieve the carbon neutral goal. So far, we have over 100 founding partners. We're engaging with minds which are artistic, innovative, research-driven, and technical. The promise of recognition is incentivizing action and sparking conversations, such as the one I'm having right now. Adelaide is demonstrating that emissions can be cut without hindering economic growth, but rather advancing it. Both my home and yours can be transformed into a creative, livable, and green smart city. By embracing tomorrow, we are doing our part to serve the community and to ensure a bright future. So today in this room, I ask you, who wants to be the first? For together, we can make the future even brighter. Thank you.
Before you come on up, before you go, I want to just say something to you all here. If you decide that you want to be America's first genuinely carbon neutral city, I promise you, you will be elected again and again and again. The American people desperately want their cities to be cleaner, safer, and healthier. I urge you to team up with Adelaide. I urge you to follow up, because if it's a mission that you're interested in, I promise you that the people you serve want it just as much as you do. You're up.
Hi, my name is Dayan, and I'm from Indonesia. About 6 years ago, I received a scholarship to go to school in Malang City, Indonesia, where I met students who came from struggling families, friends who grew up with abusive parents, who held 2 jobs at the age of 12. These students, dear friends of mine, were the ones who in the end won international science competitions and debating championships and singing contests and scholarship to study abroad. Things that once seemed impossible to us and that made other people wonder, how did they achieve them? In the year 2000, George W. Bush gave a speech about the problem of American education. He called it the soft bigotry of low expectations, how different school standards across the country force certain students, poor students from poor neighborhoods, to learn less than the rich ones. My school in Malang pushed us to be accomplished students by doing exactly what he suggested. They raised our expectations and hope for the future. They created a model school, and they invested in poor students and made us believe that we're valuable, because nothing matters more to students than opportunities and the conviction that we can achieve our dreams. All of you are sitting here because we believe that you can make a change in your community. So let's form this partnership, and let's learn from each other so that every student could benefit. If the government of Malang could help bring me to where I am right now, here, speaking to you, then you can do it 10 times better for the American kids. And I am here to support and challenge you to make that happen. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. I'm from South Korea. My name's Hoon. And before I start my speech, I'd like to thank everyone for being here. I know it's early morning. Thank you very much. Blood. South Korea is built on blood. It's built on the blood of millions of our people, as well as 36,000 American soldiers. But their sacrifices weren't in vain. Because of them, we now are able to enjoy our liberty and prosperity. From one of the poorest nations in the world, we have transformed into one of the largest economies in only about six decades. Recently, I had a chance to meet with two American mayors, Mayor Bowser from DC and Mayor Rendell from Philadelphia. Among the many different issues we discussed, there was one recurring theme. Nobody wants to live in the suburbs anymore, and the cities are getting more and more crowded. Consequently, the problem of congestion arises. Seoul, the capital city of South Korea, has tackled this issue through public transportation, which consistently ranks as the best in the world. First, our public transportation is cheap. The free transfer system between metro and public buses allows us to reach anywhere with just $1. Second, it's fast. The average speed of our public transportation surpasses that of automobiles, especially during the rush hour. Lastly, it's comfortable. With heated seats in the wintertime and free Wi-Fi, people feel comfort. America has helped us rebuild our war-torn nation. Let us help you build an efficient and effective infrastructure so that all of you can benefit, all of us can benefit. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Warda Malik, and I'm from Islamabad in Pakistan. Before I begin, I'm curious to know how many of you here have a gated community in your city? Raise your hand. For those of you who raised your hand, I'm also one of you. In fact, I live in one of the greatest gated communities in Pakistan, called Bahria Town. The view from my window is full of replicas of Western architectural monuments, like the Statue of Liberty, Eiffel Tower, and Trafalgar Square. They sell and reinforce the notion of utopian fantasies in Western capitals. Most of the poor within enclosed walls of Bahria Town used to be the domestic and labor workers who were involved in the manufacture of this la-la land. But something is changing. 2 weeks ago, I was home and drove to the replica of Eiffel Tower at night and saw young couples and teenagers from various socioeconomic backgrounds enjoying music under the moonlight. During the month of Ramadan, Bahria Town's owner organizes free iftars every day around the community. Neighborhood mosques are also going out of their way to make everyone feel welcomed. The truth is, we all want to be part of something bigger. Gated communities like Bahria Town can easily project a sense of entitlement and elitism. They have the ability to divide the world between us, the rich, versus them, the poor. And we don't need more of that in our already divided world. The thing with dreams and fantasies about gated communities is that they can be engineered, manufactured, marketed, and sold. But let's also talk about the cost that comes with it. Whether it is Beverly Park in Los Angeles or Bahria Town in Islamabad, we need to reconsider the cost of closing gates to so many people. Instead of raising gates, why not lower them, open them, and let American and Pakistani communities all share the riches and opportunities that should be available to all of us. Thank you.
As part of their NYU Abu Dhabi program, they met with Oprah Winfrey, they met with Kevin McCarthy, the majority leader, they met with Bob Iger, CEO of Disney, they met with Lorene Powell Jobs of Emerson Collective. They've been across the country. Last night, they met with Mayor Benjamin and 2 other of your colleagues, that they've had the chance to see what's really happening in this country. And they will take back with them ideas to make their countries stronger, safer, healthier, more productive. But the key in all of this is that there is a generation, the next generation, this millennial generation, that is seeking to make a difference, not just here in the 50 states, but all across the globe. Please give them a hand. Thank you, guys. So I'm going to show you about 90% is brand new. Most of this has been taken within the last 6-7 weeks. These are difficult times. And I have to admit that the students give me some hope, and that's about all the hope I have right now. that the level of division and the level of anger is so great. So I'm going to start at the end to make sure that I have time to do this, and I just asked someone, the whole thing, we're going to wrap the presentation and Q&A into one presentation. So if you got a question, if you want to make a comment, don't wait to the end. Feel free to do so as we do this. And if you're in the back, because it's very bright here, but I can see you, if you'll stand up, then I'll recognize you. And I just need the organizers to give me a 10-minute warning when we get close to the end. This is the most powerful visual that we have ever tested in an ad for millennials. And the reason why this is so powerful is that they do not see race. They do not see ethnicity. They do not see gender. The most progressive person in this room, if you're 60 years old, I don't care what your politics are. It's how we were raised. It's the messaging, the communication, the advertising. You still see what someone looks like as you judge what they say. If you're 25 years old, you don't see ethnicity. You don't see gender. You simply see people. And that's why the silhouette is so powerful. The visuals that you should be using to communicate with millennials is different than the visuals that you're going to use to communicate with senior citizens. And you should understand that and recognize that, because there is a difference in how we reach out. There's a difference in how people collect information. Every time I've spoken to the U.S. Conference of Mayors, I've always, somewhere in the beginning, done this slide. Because the truth is, this is what you do. These are the attributes that matter most. We ask a very simple question. What do you want more of that you don't have enough of? The number one answer for men, money. The number one answer for women, time. The number one answer for retirees, fewer hassles and no worries. By the way, someone yelled out once, more time for retirees, and I thought that was funny, but that's not their answer. And then for millennials, better work-life balance and better lifestyle. We are different. Our priorities are different. And the messaging should be different as well. So I wanted to start and give you at the very beginning, and feel free to take photographs of this. This is the slide that everybody waits for. I redo this every time there's a presentation. These are specifically the words for millennials, the words that will connect to them. And I just want to talk about a few of these here. Imagine is the most powerful word in the English language. When you ask people to imagine life at perfection, every one of you here has a different way of doing it, you see it differently. And that's what's so powerful about the word. If I ask, imagine life at perfection, each one of you hears your voice and sees your vision, which is why that word is so powerful. Respect is the number one attribute that millennials want from their employer. It's the number one attribute that they want from adults around them. It's the single word that elected officials are least likely to communicate, and it's the word that your constituents want to hear the most. Just do it or get it done. You heard from the students before. This is part of their lexicon, and it has nothing to do with a Nike ad, and everything to do with how they see the world today and what they want in terms of a change. They don't want to wait till tomorrow. They expect you to get it done today. Two more. Results and solutions. Millennials don't really want to know the process. They don't want to know how you're going to do it. They're not going to read a 5-page plan for the future. It's not going to happen. But they want to know that you have the solutions for them, and they want to see the results in black and white. It's almost like a checklist. And in fact, I recommend that that is probably the best way to communicate to them, is by using a checklist. Done, 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 or accomplished. I get it. I get it. It's one of the great communication tools because, and by the way, this works in families. This works in personal relationships. You're having a fight with your spouse. You say, I get it. But you usually have to do it 3 times before they calm down. Well, it's the same way in politics. When you tell people you get it, it allows you to go to the next step. And with the divisions that we have in this country, and that, by the way, I don't know if Steve Benjamin is here. There have been a lot of amazing mayors who have led this organization. I got a chance to see a video of Mayor Benjamin's speech on Friday, and that is one of the best speeches I have ever heard spoken at an organization like this. And I'm grateful to his commitment for bipartisanship, for his sharing the responsibility, sharing the limelight. There's a reason why the public has more faith in mayors than they do any other form of government. It's because you guys realize you have to work together. You got to deliver results. There is no choice. And I know the next year is going to be a great year for this organization. So I hope you've taken a picture of this, because I really do have to move on. But these are my 21 words for you today from millennials. In terms of where things stand, I know a couple of you have seen this, but for those of you who haven't, being in politics changes what you look like. It changes who you. That was 8 years. And by the way, this one here, that's a big difference. But nobody changed as much as this guy. By the way, I apologize. I switched the before and after pictures. I know that I have to fix that. I like Bernie Sanders. I really do, because he is authentic. When he delivers, he never looks at a teleprompter. All of his speeches are handwritten. They're all done from his heart. No one else prepares that for him. So we came up with a slogan because I really was hoping that he would run and that I'd be able to be involved in it. Tell me what you think of this. This is my attempt to keep with the millennial theme here. So he did have an impact. He had an impact on the economy. The fact is, more young people now, these are millennials, this is a poll of 18 to 29-year-olds, believe that socialism is more compassionate, a system that works better for people, and only 33% choose capitalism. And this blows me away. This is how different the millennial generation is now from anyone previously. We've been asking this question since 1992. Back in 92, when Bill Clinton and George Herbert Walker Bush was running, it was only 32% that chose socialism. Each election cycle, the percentage has gone higher and higher. And right now, the capitalist system, millennials are really down on it. And they're also down on corporate America. And I know I got a lot of people who represent corporations back there. In fact, if you represent a corporation in the back, raise your hand. Where are my corporate sponsors here? Okay, millennials, take a look at those guys, because those are the guys you don't want to work for. You're the employers. You're the people who we should be respecting and appreciating and thanking, because you all supply the jobs for this generation. But your communication isn't working with them because they don't appreciate or at least understand what you do. And even though this is a presentation for mayors, it is as much for you in the back that you're going to have to do a better job of reaching out. Because right now, your own people, your 23-year-olds and your 28-year-olds, don't appreciate the fact that you're giving them an opportunity at the American dream. So you look at the difference between young people and the general population overall, the entire issue agenda is different, up from the top to the bottom. Nothing matters more to young people than income inequality, because they feel like they're at the wrong end of that stick. They don't appreciate it, and they want to upend it. Education, national security, these aren't the issues that adults are talking about. These are the issues that the millennials are talking about, and they're the issues that you all should be talking about if you want to reach them. Now, this is the worst part of this presentation. This is the part that I cut really short because I don't like it. I'm embarrassed by it, but it is the truth. We can't talk to each other anymore. So you're from Milwaukee. I love the Brewers. It has got to, if you engage in a genuine conversation, you take the politics out, maybe you can get it done. But I know in Wisconsin, I remember what happened in the state with the protests. There used to be something about the gentleness and the friendliness of the people, even when it came to politics. It isn't that way anymore. It's rough. I don't know why you put up with it. You've been a victim of it. It's tough out there. I want to show you the numbers so you get an idea of just how bad it is. 81% of Americans now say that this is the most divided America has been in their lifetime. And it's across the political spectrum, independents, Republicans, Democrats. It doesn't matter who. You're from the first state. You're from the first caucus state. Everybody comes to your state. I can only think of the poison that has been put into that system as these politicians come in and tell you why the other people are wrong. And that's what it used to be. Now they tell you why the other people are evil. I mean, I got to beg you here. You've known me. Some of you have actually known me for more than a decade. We gotta stop. Yes, they are our opponents, but they're not our enemies. And the way we treat people, and if you want to understand why kids are bullying other kids, and it's become ugly in the classroom right now, and teachers say that students are acting out more this year than they ever have, what lesson are they getting from the politicians? From the top all the way down. You don't do that. And that's what's awesome about you. And if I can say something nice to the people behind the ropes, I would actually say to you, there's seats here. I would tell you, just come up here, but then someone might hit you. You're supporting the organization that does more to bring people together than any other. You're supporting the organization that has a better record of accomplishment than any other. You're supporting the organization that actually can say, we did it, and we did it together. So I thank you in the back for all that you do for this place. By the way, if you're 65 or older, you're the people who remember Vietnam. You're the people who remember Watergate. You're the people who remember the horrific 1968 and what happened there. And still you think that this is a more divided time than it was back then. We are in tough shape. The biggest divide for people overall, the partisanship, Republican versus Democrat. But number two, and I emphasize this, government versus the people. When the public looks at those who represent them, they're writing them off. They've written off Congress already. Some people have written off the executive branch. Supreme Court has been politicized. It is so upsetting to see that the very thing that the rest of the world looks at with admiration, our democracy, is the very thing that we now criticize and that we blame for so much of this division. But I do want you to notice, people of color versus whites is the #1 division right now among 18 to 29-year-olds. At the very moment that older people think that the country has come together, younger people think that these divisions are actually pulling ourselves apart. This is also a big change. 1/3 of millennials see themselves not as citizens of America, but as citizens of the globe, and the kids from NYU Abu Dhabi is proof of that. That when you look around, and this is why I don't understand what we're doing with immigration. If you want to work, if you want to grow, if you want to be free, if you want opportunity, come. Shouldn't they? Enjoy what America has to offer. Don't put up barriers. Shouldn't we be taking them down? That's what the world community thinks. Okay, in terms of listening, I love that. Intolerance will not be tolerated. Here's a problem for the millennials. And I don't think that the Parkland students are still here, because I would say this to them also. Half of all 18 to 29-year-olds have stopped talking to someone because they disagree with them. Not that someone has stopped talking to them, because there's a lot of those too, but half have said, I'm shutting you out because of political differences. This is really dangerous. This is what breeds that division, and in the end, that hatred. The older you are, the more you've been through this before, but when you get half of 18 to 29-year-olds who said, you're done because you voted for X or you support Y, you all have to address that. And one of the ways, by the way, that I hope you'll do that is through town halls that specifically have millennials and baby boomers in the same place at the same time, engaging each other in conversation. This, to me, is the watchword. It's the core principle of the country. You work hard, play by the rules, you can get ahead. Realize that 40% now, I should say, let's do the other side. 60% agree with that statement, which means that 40% do not. Either they're neutral or they disagree. That blows me away. When we've reached this point in our society, and this is also because of the divisions. I'm going to do a couple more slides, and then I'm going to come out and answer questions. When we ask the question, and we use the words extreme crisis, because in America today, everything is a crisis. I'll get out of the way. By the way, it's really weird. I'm standing here, and I notice the mayors are waiting for me to move. I'm sorry. I really do have a broad base of support. The problem is, for all these Weight Watchers type programs, you got the before and the after. I'm before the before. I actually, our debt and deficit bothers them more than anything else. And it's a lesson to you, and it's a message to you all, that you have to be fiscally responsible. Because in the end, what do they want from you more than anything else? More efficient, more effective, and more accountable. Those 6 words is what they want from mayors more than any other system. And a couple more here, which is in terms of freedom. What job do you want the most? We ask millennials again, and more than anything else, it's financial freedom. It's the idea that that job will allow them to do what they want to do, will allow them the opportunity for whatever they define, life and success. So if you're talking to millennials, financial freedom, they understand more than anything else, even more than work-life balance. Because financial freedom to them is the definition of work-life balance, but even more so. A couple more. So what do you want America to be and become? Now, there are some big differences here between Republicans and Democrats, but I ask you to look at the top 2. A land of freedom and opportunity for all, and a land of equality, fairness, and justice. If you can hit those 5 attributes as the mayor, you've hit the dreams, you've hit the aspirations, you've hit everything that they're looking for. And one more. Who's got the most potential to stop solving America's biggest problems? Congratulations, you guys are number 2. But everyday citizens beats you guys by 2 to 1. So how are you engaging your communities? How are you connecting them so they feel like they're involved in this process? So you and they together, that's the partnership. We always talk about public-private partnerships. What they really want from you is to be a partner in their own government, is to have that opportunity to have a say. And by the way, they don't demand it. They simply ask for it. They want a voice. That's what they're looking for. So I got more to show you, but I want to respond. And I'll do, first off, any questions in the expensive seats up here? By the way, this really is a divided America. You've got the seats up here, which are empty, and then all the seats back there, which are full. I feel like I'm at a baseball, I feel like I'm at the Florida Marlins baseball game. Go ahead and tell me what city you're from.
I'm from Rowlett, Texas. I did not take pictures of every slide. How do we get this information?
A check for $999 to my Swiss bank account. I'll figure out a way to make it happen.
I would appreciate that.
What else?
I have a question here.
Yes, from what city?
Just on the data, if I could, please. These responses are from millennials, correct?
What city are you from?
Oh, Tualatin, Oregon, suburb of Portland.
Cool.
Thank you.
By the way, they have the best foliage of any state I've ever been to. I've never, because these trees are so tall and the leaves get to be so many different colors, and I know I'm insulting like half the mayors here, but your foliage is great, but it rains every day, so it's not
I was going to say, that's the results of the constant precipitation. Just a question on the data. Those are responses by millennials, correct?
These are responses by millennials, yes.
It's interesting to me that you break out the responses of millennials by party. I thought there was not a great association to party by millennials. Where am I missing it?
There's not a great association by party, but there definitely is by ideology. And millennials, like this is the wake-up call for the Republicans.
So that's a supposed party mapping based on ideology?
No, we asked the question, do you consider yourself, do you tend to vote more for Republicans or Democrats?
Okay, self-identified. Interesting.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else here? Right there. And by the way, for you guys in the cameras, when I turn my back to walk to the front, can you not film my ass? Please.
Hey, I'm totally good with that. Brian Barnett, Rochester Hills, Michigan. You know, I've heard you speak many times. I think the mayors find you incredibly engaging, and I think we've all taken a lot of practical things back home. One of the things I want to ask about, because you've always taught us and you've shared with us how important words are, and even your discussion today about themes and messaging. As you know, the conference now has a 2-year direction on our 3 I's of infrastructure, inclusion, and innovation. Your thoughts on that? Are we hitting the target? Are we?
I love that, because there are 3 I's, so people will remember it. You know that I'm not a particular fan of infrastructure, but the fact that you've got the inclusion. What's the third one? Innovation, because that's the future, but I've got one more for you, because I got the human element for you. How about inspiration? inspiration, and here's why. Now, that was supposed to be applause, and I'm not begging, I'm not Jeb Bush. Do not. You're not allowed to applaud at that. Think about how negative people are to government right now. Think of how much that they don't like, hey, guys, get a room. Oh, you didn't see what happened up here, but that was really sweet. I hope someone got it on camera so we can play it on C-SPAN. You don't realize what's going on in my head because I'm thinking this is a Marriott, so you actually could. And I will leave it at that. Who's going to lift people up? Who's going to make them feel better? Who's going to give them hope and that sense that as bad as things are now, and they are bad, and I will fight with anyone who says they're not, that they can be better tomorrow? We used to be the most hopeful society on the face of the globe. Americans believed in the future, and in fact, it used to make the Europeans really mad at us because we were so hopeful, and now we're not. I would ask you, if you can add inspiration as the fourth eye to give people that sense that tomorrow's going to be better, that you will raise their spirits, that will have an impact. So think about it. Good question. Any more from up here? Okay, any from back there? Nobody. Okay, right there. He's going to give you a microphone.
Yep. I'm Judy Barnett, Brian's mom, and I wondered how large is your database
I'm sure Brian appreciates you telling people that.
Sorry, but I'm not a mayor. I'm just like a participant.
By the way, there's a joke that I tell about my mom.
No.
And she was there when I told it. And you have to understand that I'm Jewish. Is anyone here Jewish? Raise your hands if you're Jewish. Don't raise your hands. Have you not learned anything from history? Every time someone has asked that question, it hasn't worked out for us. If you saw the movie, our character doesn't make it to the end, so please. So I made the comment that Latinos absolutely love. Is anyone here from Anheuser-Busch? Because you guys did the ad. It was a wonderful ad, a Latino ad targeted at beer. A Latino holds up her bottle. She's living in the house right across the street from her parents. And that's the American dream. Living across the street from your parents. I'm Jewish. Living across the street from my mother is the American nightmare. So I tell that joke, and my mom's in the back of the room. This really did happen. And she says, apologize. Now, she's a little woman. She was 5'3". By this point, she's like 4'6". And she looks like Helen Hayes about a year before she died. And my mom says, apologize. And all these lawyers look around, and they see my mom. And she says, it's like, don't ever mess with your mom. I will give you that one piece of advice. And I said, Mom, I'm speaking. And she says, I don't care, apologize. I said, Mom, I was just kidding. She says, you're being rude. I said, Mom, you're living up to the stereotype of a Jewish mother. And she said, that's it, you're out of the will. So I don't even know what your question was.
I don't either. No.
Database. Okay,
Database.
All these surveys are 1,200 people, margin of error of 3%. They were done within the last 6-7 months. One of these was done for One People. It's the organization One People that seeks to bring everyone under the same tent where we find common ground. And that was done within the last 4 weeks. So this is very modern data. Anything else in back here? Oh, right there. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm Constance Partee Levette Johnson with City Political Magazine.
Cool.
I'm interested in knowing how you feel about this sudden surge of millennials running for elected office and organizations such as Ignite blossoming in our society.
I think it's significant because for the first time since this happened in the early 1970s as a response to Martin Luther King, as a response to Bobby Kennedy. And the tragedy is that it usually happens because something awful has happened. In this case, what happened in the school shootings. It's a good outcome, but the cause is very tragic. So I think it's significant. But I think even more so are the candidates, are female candidates that are running, that you're coming very close to gender, an even gender split for candidates running for office. And that's amazing. That is going to have an impact right now in the elections in 2018 and going forward. Millennials still don't participate as much as their parents and their grandparents do, but we are having an equalization with women, and I think our elected office holders are going to look much more like America of today rather than the America 50 years ago. And that's a very good development. Yes, right here.
Millennials' participation rates seem to be way lower than seniors and other folks, but their voice is loud, but then it doesn't translate in the ballot box.
I think this time it will, because the Parkland students and others are not going home. They're not losing interest, and they are shaming those who don't vote into taking responsibility for their actions, that they have to speak up, and they are. So I think you're going to have a higher millennial vote in 2018 than you've had at any time since 2010.
How higher? It's still like so low compared.
It'll still be below their
Yeah.
parents and grandparents, but it'll be enough that it'll swing a few congressional districts.
All right.
I'm going to take one more, and then we got to end it. So it's going to be right there. By the way, you've got the Air Museum, correct? Go to Dayton, Ohio. I've always wanted to shoot a focus group there. That is one of the most unsung, underappreciated, awesome museums I have ever been to. The coolest thing about being a pollster and working across the country is you actually get a chance to see things and experience things. So if any of you want me to come and do a plug for any museum, just put me up in a nice hotel and I'll be there. Last one.
Yeah, my name is Steve Tompkins. I am the sheriff here in Boston.
It's been nice knowing you guys. Thank you very much. That was not my drugs. That was my students' drugs. In fact, where's Sebastian? It was his drugs right there. That was not mine. That kid, I swear to God,
I believe you.
Paper, piper, bong, Sebastian said all three. So go ahead.
In your research, I'm curious as to how many of these millennials were of color. The reason I ask is because in the Commonwealth, you have a demographic that is about 18% between blacks and Latinos. In my facility, at the Suffolk County Sheriff's Department, that same demographic is 65%. And so there are a lot of young folk of color that it doesn't matter what you put up here, they think the system is skewed away from them and that they're not being listened to. So I'm just curious, how many folk of color did you talk to when you did this research?
So it would have been almost identical to the census data. So among millennials, it was about 26, 27%. And then as you get older, that percentage drops precipitously. When you're over 65, it's a much smaller percentage. So it does match the total. And you talked about the system being broken. I do want to point this out to you, that 2/3 think the system is rigged. They do believe it, and it frustrates them. And that's one of the reasons why they haven't voted until now, because they don't feel connected. And this is one of the reasons, because of your occupation, I do believe in prison reform. I do believe in justice reform. But this is one of those great issues that we can make a significant difference, but we got to do this together. Democrats and Republicans together, people of color and the majority together, 21-year-olds and 71-year-olds together. It matters so much. Of all the presentations that I've done for the mayors, this is the one that matters to me the most. Number one, I think your leader is just awesome. I think he's amazing. And I think his attitude and his inclusiveness is so wonderful. And two is I got a chance to share it with 14 students that are going to change the world. So I hope that we provided you with some information. This is only half of what I had for you. One more question. I feel like this is like a concert.
I'm former mayor of Akron and former past president, and over the years, you've provided wonderful information. It just struck me that the next leap here is for providing the next step is, how do you get to these millennials? How do you get information? Nobody believes anything anymore, and the Twitters and all of the things. What are you gaining or gathering from them as to what they believe and how mayors, or for that matter, corporate America, can change to give them the information they need? What's the next recommendation after, here's the statistics, now here's how you get to them?
It's difficult because you're correct. They don't believe anything. And they collect so much information that nothing really sticks. I think that you have to do it face to face. The most important thing for you all in the back room and for you all here, the most important thing you can do is to go into the schools, is to make a commitment that every single week you're going to be in at least 2 public schools. You're going to ask the schools to bring the students together. You're going to explain to them what you're doing and why you're doing it, and then you take questions from them. And by the way, for you elected officials here, and by the way, I didn't get a chance, I really do want to thank the mayor of Plano and thank the mayor of Miami, because you guys coming to speak to my students last night was really amazing. Now, the mayor doesn't even know that I plugged them, but thank you again. Don't read to the students. Let the students read to you. Don't just take questions, ask, learn. I want you to flip the communication on its head. If we're really to make an impact, we have to do it the opposite, which is we go to them, we don't expect them to come to us. We listen to them rather than talking at them. We ask them questions so they teach us, and then we go out and try to get it done. There is no other organization better, Tom, than this one to make that happen, and there are no better people to do that than the people in this room. Thank you very much. This is an honor and a privilege.
All right, very good. I'd like to thank Frank and all of our youth that participated in today's session. Please give them all another round of applause. I think we've all learned a lot. We're ready to take what we've learned back home with us, and I'm excited for the work of our new task force on youth involvement. I look forward to collaborating with our mayors and our thought leaders on these important issues. Thank you all.
Mayors, please join me again in thanking our incredible guests and thanking Frank for his time and effort. Thank Shane Bemis for his vision, his leadership, and this wonderful youth involvement plenary session. We're now going to start our annual business session, so to get the work of the conference done. So thank you. Everyone, if you guys would settle down for a second, one important note, a moment of personal privilege for me and those of our colleagues. Before we get started in this business session, I want to take a moment to remember